Welcome to People First Builders, celebrating leaders in construction who build success through their people. My name is Fletcher Wimbush, your host. I'm the CEO of Discover.ai, a performance hiring software helping small and mid-sized AEC companies solve their hardest problem, people. We help people first leaders install and execute repeatable talent acquisition systems that drive business results by hiring top performers, lowering turnover, and building world-class company cultures. Stick around to the end and you can learn more about how to become a guest on our podcast and share your story with the world. Welcome to the People First Builders podcast. I'm Fletcher Wimbush. Or should I say Fletcher Forrest Wimbush, and I'm here with Jeff Forrest Senior. He's the president and CEO of WPC, a leader in large-scale construction projects across the Southeast with over 45 years of hands-on experience. Jeff has overseen the completion of more than 40,000 apartments, 20,000 timeshare units, 7,500 hotel rooms. His leadership has positioned WPC as a premier contractor with a reputation for quality, innovation, and long-term client trust. You are also in the process of transitioning, I understand, the company from you to the second generation. And this is a fairly common story here in the construction industry. As senior leaders like yourself are moving on, you're looking for the future leaders in the industry, which there is a massive deficit of. Sometimes people are lucky enough to be able to have a family member like you follow in your footsteps. Other times, maybe not so much. How's that transition going for you?
Yeah, well, when I hear that intro, I now realize that I am much older than I seem to feel sometimes. So you have that volume work and you realize, man, you must have been around a long time to do that. And I've enjoyed 46 years, June 9th, it'll be 46 years at this company. Just to give you a little bit of backstory, when you talk about transition, my brother started this company in 1974. And I went to work for him as a pup in 1979. That's when he started paying me, which is really interesting. I always give him a little bit of a hard time, or could give him a little bit of time. He passed away in 2020, but I would give him a hard time that for like 3 years of my career, I would just be having fun at the job sites with my brother, right? He'd take me out on the weekends, I'd go out in the summer, and I'm like enjoying life. And then finally, I realized I should be getting paid for all this work. So as I came out of my junior year of high school in 15, I went to work in the summer and with my brother, and it was so much fun. Started getting paid back then, and it's been a wonderful 46 years. My brother and I transitioned leadership. Really, it kind of started in 1997 when he kind of got the idea that perhaps he had other things he wanted to do. He was the type A quintessential, entrepreneur. He was the guy that started companies and had a lot of failures, and WPC just happened to be one of the main successes. And then that led
squirrely visionary.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Yeah. And so in the late 90s, early 2000s, I became president of the company and then became majority owner in 2007. I had wonderful partners, still have one of my partners, Kevin Corrado, who is our COO here, who has helped guide this company, for over 50 years. And so as we started to move into what we would really consider the second transition, the third generation leadership, very blessed that my son, Jeffrey, wanted to be a part of this company and made a choice to do that. He's got a great backstory, by the way. And when we get a chance to talk to him sometime, or you get a chance to talk to him sometime, he went to college, first Forrest in the family to go to college. Nice. We were all nail bangers. My granddad, my dad, my brother, myself were just nail bangers. It's where we went to work,
Well, I mean, you either love it or you hate it, I guess, right?
Or both sometimes, right? So Jeffrey goes to college, goes to FSU his first year, and starts to play online poker with his buddies. And within about 3 or 4 months, I mean, I have no expense. My son's making money online. He's doing great. Finishes his freshman year, comes to me and says, "Hey, Dad, I think I want to play professional poker." And I go, "Listen, man, for me, I'm perfectly fine. Your mom is not going to be happy about that choice. So you don't have to sell me. Yeah. You got to sell your mom." And he managed to do that. And, he played professional poker for about, really when he was old enough to actually sit at a table. But prior to that, it was online. He was doing great. I mean, he was the youngest World Poker Tour champion. at the time. Now they're much younger, but at the time when he turned
Wow.
21, he won the World Poker Tour Championship and at Foxwoods, and I got to be there. I know nothing about poker,
Yeah.
and so he played that for 4 years, and he enjoyed it, and then decided to come gamble in the construction business, which is probably bigger zeros and in a whole lot different world.
Sounds like a lot harder work to go into the construction industry than hanging out at a poker table all day. But
it is, the poker tables are kind of boring. I think he kind of just got tired of sitting at the table, right?
Yeah.
But he had great successes and was on TV, and it was all fun and games back then. We both joke he had a career earnings of like $1.4 million, and I think career losses were like $1.5 million. So with all of that said, he made a choice to come back and be in the construction business, and that was 13 years ago, and he is just a smart, wonderful kid that I'm blessed with a golden child. Yeah. And went and got his bachelor's degree in business, and he, along with his kind of counterpart. So Kevin and I, there's 4 partners in the company. Yeah. Kevin and I are the old men in the group. We share our wisdom, and Jeffrey, who is the general partner, and Sam Miller, his partner. So they're cohorts. They're both in that 36 to 37-year-old range. Kevin and I are 60 plus, and so the transition was interesting because I learned a great deal about transitioning between my brother and myself.
Okay. Yeah. So what went well between, the transition between your brother and you, and what didn't go well then?
I think what went well is that we were 2 different personalities in the sense that I had the extrovert, I was the branding, I was sales, I was marketing, I was business development. So I would be the guy, and my brother was not. My brother was a bit of an introvert. Okay. Didn't like to speak in public. I had no problem. I could get in front of and have got in front of 2,000 people.
You get excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm energized, right? I'm tired when I'm done, which I guess is the definition of an introvert. But anyway, with all that said, so the good part about that transition is that we were 2 different personalities, and for the longest time, I was the business development face of this company from the mid '90s, even still to some today. The challenge was that my brother was a type A guy that never wanted to let go of his baby completely.
Yeah. Right. Let go of full control. Yeah. And I think that's a common theme, actually, when any sort of kind of aging founder, right, letting go, whether it be to a family member or to a third party, private equity, or to some other leader that they've developed, maybe outside of the family. That's a very big problem. So dig into that for me.
Yeah, it was difficult in the sense that you're never going to do the same. You're never going to be the same person. You're never going to make the same choices. You're never going to go through the same processes. And Tracy always had that thought, well, he's not doing it like I thought I was going to do it, So he kind of would stick his nose into different places.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, it was tension, man. He and I had some tension. Yeah. I got used to this, right? So I needed to figure out how I was going to be a leader in this company, and how people in this company saw me as the leader, and how Tracy as the founder was still going to kind of insert his part of the recipe. And so it became, for me, it became something I knew I had to adapt to.
Yeah. So because you don't want to have like chaos or let's show there's contention or misalignment on the leadership side down to the rest of the team. I assume that's disruptive for everyone. And there's plenty of stories around that too, where I see executives leaving organizations where there's sort of conflict at the leadership level, right, due to these types of things.
And chances are, if I wasn't his brother and I was just somebody that came in to take this role on, they would have been gone. Right. Yeah. It just wouldn't have worked out. And my brother was so smart. He was so creative. I loved the fact that he was my mentor for all those years. It was wonderful.
So how did you create space for him to have his hand in it, but yet for you to sort of take control of leadership reins ultimately?
Yeah. And so the way that worked is everybody around me that Kevin included, at the time there was a couple of other partners, all recognized this same kind of process. Yeah. And so they understood that we would almost have, in some sense, 2 different interactions. There would be the interaction when Tracy was in the room, and we would all be present, and we would all be respectful and honor that role. And then when he wasn't there, because he was running other businesses, I mean, he had 2 or 3 other businesses. He was a pilot, he had an FBO, and he was doing all these other things. And there'd be times when he wasn't in the room. And when he wasn't in the room, it was like, okay, now let's talk about what we really are going to do. right? So,
Shadow
and
government.
yeah, it was funny. And I mean, I love my brother, and I was so sad, as anybody would be when he passed away in 2020. And it was what was interesting about that, Fletcher, so I had lived in this environment for so long, and my brother was my sounding board. I could walk in his room, I could
Yeah,
walk into his office, close the door, and I go, "Hey,
yeah.
this is the situation we're in." And he wouldn't answer any questions. He would just ask me a bunch of questions. He was
Oh,
perfect at that, right?
so
He was
he's good.
very,
That's
very
a good coach and
he was
mentor like
very, very
behavior.
good at that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, what I hit that door, there's nobody in that room anymore. And so now I'm like, holy cow, I'm here. I am now in this role that I always, had imagined being in. And I don't have my sounding board, and I don't have my brother there. And it took me about 6 months. It really was. It took me about 6 months to go, oh, what am I going to do? I'm in this thing. And then it was like a click. And I had other people around me kind of going, okay, Tracy trusted you. You're in this role. You've been successful in it for 17 years. What are you worried about? Let's go to work. And it was at that point that I sat with my brother and my other partners, and we go, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to change. We're going to reinvent this company in the sense that it was 2020, right? It
Yeah.
was right there in the midst of chaos.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, this is a perfect opportunity. Let's take advantage of the situation. Let's figure out how we're going to be more efficient. We're going to be able to work our way through market conditions. And my son's very analytical and really focuses on how efficiency. And at that time, there was lots of
Well, you got to be a World Series poker winner too.
yeah, he's got to have that analytical thought process.
Yeah,
And so
the emotions of steel, right?
he applied that to software. How do we get our project management and our administrative software, all these things, so that not that we wanted to get rid of people, because that wasn't the plan, but how do we be more efficient so we can do either the same amount of work with less people or more work with the same people?
Yeah.
And it was a very effective plan that we put in place. And so back to the conversation about transition. So my brother and I had some tensions. We worked through them. We managed through them. The difference now is that I don't sit in the rooms with Jeffrey in situations where I know he's perfectly fine, right?
Mm.
He can go in, he can stumble a little bit, but he's very analytical. And so when he's approaching a situation, whether it's a negotiation or otherwise, I already know he's done his homework. He like my brother and I he'll walk in my office and we'll chat, right? He'll go, so, where have we ran into this before in the previous history? This particular client is this way, or we've got a contract negotiation. How do we manage through it? And, my job again is to share wisdom and
Yeah.
write it. Right?
It will provide mentorship and leadership to him singularly, as opposed to maybe trying to step up around him or step into his problem then.
And so we were very clear with everybody in this company at different times. We do our town halls or we do our events or whatever. My job is to step out of the way
Yeah.
and to allow this young group of people, and we have a lot of really great young project managers. We were fearful in 2014 and 15 that we had an aging workforce.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that in a sec.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So anyways, the great part about the short version of my son and I, we are both aligned on how we want each one of us to be successful.
Yeah.
For me to be successful as I move to the next part of my life, which is development work, and he and I are doing that together.
Did you set like kind of rules and guidelines, like some sort of, formal or semi-formal like way, hey, this is like how we're going to operate together?
We did not. I think it was more of just the idea of understanding that he and I knew, and we would talk it. My son and I have been tight as thieves. Yeah. There's never been a moment where there was that separation, where you get teenagers kind of go off and they end up coming back. I was blessed. I mean, my son and I have literally been tight as thieves, have always talked. We've always lived near each other. We've always been around each other. And so the ability for us to communicate more openly, much more openly than I had with my brother, makes a huge difference. And so we always consider the other one's kind of desired process or outcome or whatever the thing is. And so that when we go into a situation, it is, how is this mutually beneficial, whether it's a leadership conversation or a personal conversation, because he and I own separate businesses together. And so how are we going to approach this so that we set ourselves up for success, And so the best way to describe it is we are aligned with each other's ultimate goals. And more importantly, we're aligned with the processes by which we want to accomplish them.
Yeah. 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 And I think, I mean, alignment takes that level of empathy and emotional intelligence that you're talking about. I think is that, understanding the other person's position, they're both their personal and professional goals, and respecting those in those times of potential conflict or misalignment or differing ideas, right? So that you can come to a mutually agreeable outcome or path forward, I would imagine then, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. And so, I mean, he's a smart kid. I'd say a kid, he's 37 years old. So, but he'll always be the kid, right? He'll always be my child.
Yeah.
But the idea that I've had multitudes of experiences that have allowed us to overcome our mistakes or
Yeah.
be successful, however you describe it, that learning piece where, I mean, I know tomatoes are fruit and I just make sure he doesn't put it in the fruit salad. So
Yeah. Okay. How do you make, yeah, well, but at some point he's going to make mistakes, or how do you put yourself in a position where you give him some freedom to fail, right? I mean, at some point you have to, right?
it's the most important part of the process.
Yeah.
Is that, and so, I learned probably in my late 20s the importance of failure. And really, you can call it whatever you want. These lessons that we learn at the hardest of moments are the ones that will give us the strength when we
Yeah.
move, through difficult times or otherwise. So,
Yeah. It's what I call failing forward,
there
hopefully.
you go. Yeah. I mean, I love the various ways people describe failure, and I've never been afraid of it, and
Yeah.
neither has he. I mean, when you play poker, obviously there's a lot of hands you're not going to win, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so
You got to embrace failure big time, right?
right. But he's patient, he's persistent, he's observant, and he's got a great support mechanism. His wife is wonderful. She's a COO of a major law firm here in Orlando. And so he's got these people around him, including our partners, Sam and Kevin, that really give him the ability to set the company up for success.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. He's a YPO member, which is a huge benefit for him. I didn't get to benefit from that. My brother was.
Yeah. So were you ever part of any kind of executive peer groups or anything?
Yeah, we had a wonderful peer group. FMI, you may or may not be familiar with.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, they're a fantastic group based out of Denver. They facilitated a peer group that we joined in 2000.
Are they industry specific, or was it more?
Yeah, exactly right. So there were 8 general contractors, us inclusive, so 7 other GCs from all around the United States. Different, relatively same size per se, but different markets and different groups, and none of us competed against each other.
Yeah.
These other 7 CEOs and presidents of the companies, we would get together 3 times a year. We would cry on each other's shoulders.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it was about learning, lessons learned from all the companies. And so therefore you shorten the learning curve.
Yeah.
If you ever had a problem, you'd be able to pick up the phone and you'd be able to call. I could call Bill Goodrich at LaChase Construction in Rochester, New York. That's $1 billion construction company.
Yeah.
And Bill, I go, hey, I got this problem. Have you ever ran into it before? He goes, yeah. Let me tell you how to manage that. And the wonderful part about it is that group stayed together for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And as generations changed, as leadership changed, the peer groups kind of went in their own way. The construction companies went in their own way. We're actually getting together in Scottsdale.
Gonna have a reunion.
We're having a reunion in November. Yeah,
that's good. So, I love hearing about those like long-term, peer groups like that. And so, I mean, I think just a quick takeaway for anybody listening who's not part of a peer group. I mean, so I'm a member of EO. I speak to Vistage groups all the time, and I have lots of friends in YPO. So those are 3, like, I think, top ones that you might hear about. And if you're seeking one, those would be great places to look. But there's also the Builder 20 Club out there in the construction space. I think they're more residential contractors, but and I don't know about, I'm not familiar with FMI. Are they still around? But they
still facilitate groups. They do all kinds of things. They manage transitions of companies. The wonderful part about the being in a peer group like we were in is these companies transition. So at different times, we're all going through leadership transitions, ownership transitions, difficult times. And we were able to support each other in that process and learn from it.
Yeah.
So I'm a 1+1=3 guy.
Yeah.
And so when you talk to, especially for your listeners, when they think of the opportunities a peer group brings, it is, you are exponentially going to gain knowledge that you wouldn't gain otherwise if you did not get in there and start kind of curating those experiences. And
it's been transformational for me to be part of those types of groups. And I don't know where I would be without it. And so, and anytime, I was actually the membership chair for a long time, for 3 years, having to like recruit people, and people like, I don't have time for it. I'm like, I don't know how you don't have time. Like, this is the most valuable time you're ever going to spend on working on yourself and your business, So, but anyways, a little plug for peer-to-peer groups. And I think they're all phenomenal. So there's no right or wrong one. Find the one that's right for you, but explore them, kick the tires, whatever you do there. Right. But, find a group, right, that's right for you.
Right on.
The other day, right?
And Jeffrey has relationships in those groups, even though he's not in the same peer group as they are. And so what it did, it allowed for him to, even if he has a challenge with me or doesn't want to bring something up to me, whatever the case might be, he's got these sounding boards that he could reach out to. Yeah. And it's very helpful. And our transition, in especially externally, so the optics of our transition were different than the optics of the transition.
Well, that's actually a really important note, right? Because if he didn't have anybody else to turn to externally, that's a trusted, place that's of confidential, nature, and that, other people that maybe experienced or are about to experience that, then that's where maybe, some of any angst that might happen in that process might be complaining to the controller or to somebody else in the company, where now those conversations don't feel like they need to be happening internally. They can be happening externally in safe places. Because, look, we all have to get these things off our chest, right? There's always conflict or tension that occurs in situations like this. And, having a healthy place to, deal with those is really important. Okay. Before we run out of time, I want to hear your take on the future of the construction industry. There's always, lots of talk about, the deficit of talent of young people, both going into the trades, but also into construction management. It doesn't matter. Each level there, it's this huge gap. And I feel like we're at a turning point a little bit, like the tides are turning, that it's sexy to be in construction again, but it's still a big problem. So what have you done to, or seen, or what are your feelings about, the current condition or sexiness, or, how are we going to solve this problem?
Yeah, what a great question, and certainly a great topic, and one that I talk about frequently when I'm at speaking engagements or sitting on a panel or whatever. When we think, in the late 70s, when I went to work, it was because I loved being in the work environment. I had a father and a brother that they were my models. So I saw what that meant to them. Yeah. And I love the idea of going to work. And I didn't like getting up at 5:30 and being on the job at 6:30 and, I had a great tan. I got to tell you, I had a great tan, back in the back in the 70s when OSHA,
you looked great.
You could wear shorts and no hard hat, all that. But that aside, the entering into the business, into the industry, in 1979, I'm making $5 an hour. There was nobody I was going to school with that was making, they were all making minimum wage in that 235 range or whatever the number was. And so I looked at it a lot of different ways. So I'm dyslexic. Getting out of high school was a challenge. College was out of the question. And so, I went into this knowing that I had an opportunity with my brother. He gave me that opportunity. I had the right last name. It certainly didn't mean I was going to keep my job if I didn't work hard. Yeah. But I liked it, right? I liked working. Mm-hmm. Today, fast forward, when you talk about trade specific and not necessarily management specific, we'll get there if we have time. The reality is trades, it's rare that a teenager or otherwise is going to choose this industry, this business, unless it's their last resort. Yeah. Right? Teenagers are drawn differently to different type of influences.
Well, I
have a 17-year-old stepson that I can't get out of his gaming room, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think this whole draw of technology, maybe entrepreneurship falls in that bucket, or, the white collar job or going to college as the way, the path, and that's my generation is like, go to college, period. Right.
Yeah.
that kind of a deal. I'm 42. So, we're kind of,
I got 20 years on you, brother. I got
yeah,
20 years.
exactly. Right. So we both have different experiences, but I grew up with boomer, parents and workers. And I started working when I was 7 years old in my stepfather's concession stand in front of Home Depots. So I had a lot of, experience with the trades and starting at a young age. And then I got into my own, hammer swinging days too. But yeah, there's that. But I think you hit something. So you were making 3, 4, 5 times what your cohorts, your counterparts were making back in the late 70s, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's a period of time, I think, when being in the trades, you're making not making substantially more than going into even hospitality or some other low level, white collar job, right? So there's this compensation disparity, and now we're starting to see that, change, right? You could go to college and rack up $100,000 or more in debt to go get a job that doesn't really pay all that great, 60,000, 50,000, and it's going to be pretty hard to pay that back. Or you could go to work making 60,000, basically day one or after a very short period of time, and be making even into the 6 figures after not many years, 2, 3, 4 years, right?
Yeah, I think you bring up a huge point when it comes to looking at this industry. The sexiness of this industry today is you can look, and it's you can't generalize because it's hard to do that. But the individuals that start to grind early, that start to learn the business, that learn it in the field and then transition that kind of field knowledge into some management, and you do that through whatever educational component you have. By the way, FMI has a great leadership institute. Fantastic. I actually went to it 5 years ago because I wanted to see what it was like for our younger guys to go to. Yeah. Point being is, if you are patient and you grind early and you start to put yourself in positions of being able to move through the companies that you go to, and I'm a big proponent of sticking, I come from a generation where I love to watch ball players start with a team and end with a team. Doesn't happen anymore, and I get it. But the reality is, if you can really get to it, this is a great living. It's not a good living, it's a great living. Yeah. So, and I could not be a better example of somebody that barely gets out of high school, that goes to work at 15. I finish, but I'm working. I did everything in this trade. I was a carpenter's helper, a labor, worked my way all the way through it. And yes, I had the opportunity to buy a company. I believe if my brother was not here and I still had the same movement in my trajectory, that I would be in a position where I would be calling myself successful in an industry that's hard to be successful in, right?
So I think there is it's a kind of a public announcement, or it's an awareness issue, right? That I think is getting better. And so guys like you being able to go out there, and hopefully part of what we're doing here on a podcast like this is just whatever, we can touch 10 people or 100 people in this and begin to share these ideas that, we need to be out there talking to these people, young kids and just individuals in general, that, hey, there is a different path here. Because look, you can go to college and grind your way for 4 years too, right? And, not make much, rack up a bunch of debt, and then come out and not make much, right? Or you can go this other path, right? And, look, hard work is hard work. And for a substantial cohort of individuals, that is a very rewarding path, by the way, right? Yeah. And I think we're at a turning point with this Gen Z where they really appreciate that, the opportunity to get their hands dirty, do something that's meaningful, to be able to see the fruits of their labor, actually see and feel and touch it, right? And so we're in a prime opportunity there, and there's the inflection point of the supply and demand curve has created this great opportunity that these jobs now pay substantially better than many other opportunities that are out there, even in the software industry or tech industry and other sexier places that you can go. So I think part of it is this: we need to sell and market these opportunities. But then there's these different paths that people can go, right? You could be a career tradesperson and make a phenomenal living and have phenomenal work-life balance. If you'd like to do that, and you can do this, safely, and you can, be healthy in this career path, you can expand that into leadership within a larger organization. And now the entrepreneurial path is probably the third path, right? That, as a tradesperson, you come in, you can cut your teeth, you can grow, you can learn. And then, many folks that have gone down that path, probably like your family, started there and ultimately became an entrepreneur and have grown an extremely successful business, right? So, I think it's clarity around the paths, which I think, I don't know if people talk about those enough. Like when you're 18, are you aware of what your opportunities are, what those three paths might be and what they might look like and how long they might take and what is going to be involved in that? So how do we tell the world about that more effectively?
Well, I'm sure this isn't a new thought, but I sure like the idea of creating a business around exactly what you talked about. And that is, how do we sell this industry the way that you speak of it in such a way where people will recognize it? So I have been, this comes from my mid 20s, late 20s. I have always loved process and systems.
Yeah.
And then the outcome just happens to be the thing that happens when you focus hard enough and you've got good habits. And
It's what I call manufactured luck.
There you go. And so I never said, hey, by the way, I want to make $1 million, or I want to build this, or I want this big company. I always said I love the process of learning and I love the process of going through this. And then now this part of my career is watching and help guiding younger people. And by the way, a couple of ways we do that. So in Florida here, in Central Florida, there's a group called ACT, A-C-T. This is a group that we've been a part of now probably 15 years. And they start interacting with high school kids that are interested in the trades, and then how do we get them to start to get some education around it, whether it be trade work or otherwise. Now you have to be 18 to go to work in the field, but we can start injecting a little bit of this little experience into younger kids. And then we do internships, which we have, it's been very successful for us. We have at least 2 now, what I would consider middle to upper management people in the project management world started out as interns.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what they were going to do, but they came to work.
And they fell in love with it, obviously.
Yeah. One thing we did differently, I think, is our culture here is one where we really celebrate as often as we can. We strive to become one of the best places to work through the various processes you can do that. But we do it with purpose, right? We do it because we want people to want to enjoy coming to work here every day, as difficult as work is or as monotonous as it might be from time to time. We want them to think, okay, hey, that's a great place to come to work. Yeah. And we want that to kind of exude through so you have to kind of sell this thing, right? You have to brand it. You have to market it. You got to sell it. Yeah. And you got to make it look sexy. And if you can put it in a situation where people see the outcome over time, they're patient enough, they're willing to grind. This is a great business, man. I got to tell you, I love building stuff. Yeah. I still love going to the job sites. I still love, if my dad was around, he was saying that you're doing the same thing you did when you were 4 years old, when he built me my little blocks and I would put them together.
Yeah. And, every little kid likes building things. Come on, man.
My grandson uses the same blocks I did when I was 4 years old. My dad had these, and so he loves it, right? And whether he becomes a builder or not, who knows? Yeah. Hopefully in the DNA, you kind of got to breed workers around here. But I think I want to punctuate something from one generation to the next. I'm considered a Zennial or millennial, and I don't know. I guess are you considered a boomer then? I guess I'm a boomer. Yeah, I guess boomer, right? Into that category.
Okay, so and I think this is one of the and I love this conversation. But every generation looks at the generation after them and says, well, they don't have the same work ethic or the same values or whatever, right? I believe that to be true. But here's one observation that I've made in my cohort of millennial friends and whatnot. And also, I've interviewed 15,000 people. So I also have some other unique experiences in that sense. And so observed a lot of people go through their career and talked about their career paths. Quintessentially, people who stick with something for a long period of time get very, very good at it. And they typically stick with it because they love it, first of all, right? Yep. But nobody gets great at anything overnight. And the only way to get great at something is sticking with it and doing it for a long period of time. Now, that doesn't always necessarily mean you have to do it for the same organization, but generally sticking with the same organization for a significant period of time in order to rack up wins, successes, a reputation of high performance, which then might lead you to another organization. And usually it does through some sort of referral or networking, or you're being pulled because of the relationships that you've built and that through that journey here. And I cannot stress this enough. So, the job hopping thing is absolute garbage nonsense from my perspective. And the data will support this. People who stick with the career path and really dive into it, earn more, have more happier, satisfying personal lives. There are a lot of studies around this stuff than the people who skip jobs every year or two, frankly.
Yeah, I think that one of our metrics of success, and I get the industry is transient and people can have opportunities that presented to them. One of our metrics of success is how long people stay here.
Yeah.
This month alone, we celebrate two of our employees, one 30 years and one 32 years. The 30-year guy is a project manager, one of our senior project managers, solid human, solid, loves being here and has loved being here.
Yeah.
And this is not a fun industry all the time. And so for somebody to want to stick around for that long is great. And our IT guy, Harry, I call him a hacker, he's been here for 32 years. And we have a wall of fame of people that have been here more than 15 years and they get their caricature up on that wall. And the idea of staying with a company, I think there's a value to that you describe that you wouldn't get if you just moved all over the place all the time. And I mean, it is personal choices that people make to do that. But I think you have to create an environment that starts at the leadership level. And I can take some credit for that, but I don't own it because it's owned by everybody here.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, and I think if you're a young person, you're going out, or anybody, you might even be in the middle of your career and it might have been a rough road, right? And you might be going like, what do I do now? I'm sort of back to ground zero here. And I see this far too often too, that, and in this climate, as a job seeker, you have choices, right? And you probably will for some time to come. Be selective about who you choose to go to work for. So going to work for an organization like yours who has measurable accolades and stories to tell, proven track record of helping people advance their career in a meaningful way and sticking with it, and those stories to tell and awards to show for it, right? And personal stories that can be told from those people on that wall of fame, right? Those are really important stories to be telling to the people that might be interested in coming to work for you. But if that's not being told to you as a candidate, you should be asking about those things, right?
Great point, Fletcher. Right? Yeah, I mean, it's almost like when you do the interview process, it is a two-way street. Yeah. And I say that I don't get to interview too many people anymore, but I do get an opportunity to talk to most of them, if not all the people that join this company. And I tell them how important it is for them to look at who we are as people, look at the history of this company to make sure that they can fit in. It's one thing that we might want somebody to come work here. Do they want to be here? Yeah. And being here is not just coming to work at whatever time you're supposed to be here and doing your job. It's participating in a culture that we really believe in and that, has an opportunity to give you some value outside of the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. And so you nailed that too. It's how does this career path help me achieve my personal goals in life? Both that's my personal goals, what I want my family life to look like, but also my professional development as well. And as human beings, we all thrive to grow as human beings in some shape or form, right? And advance our standard, our well-being, our standard of living for our family, for ourselves, and just have growth going on inside of us personally and professionally. So you nailed it. And then the other piece that I think is really interesting is, look, it's okay to be like, it's not for me, right? Like, this is not the right home for me. But again, it's important that as you make this decision, you make this commitment to where you want to go work, to think about the long-term consequence that has to make the wrong decision for yourself. Look, we can make mistakes and you can fail forward with those. But, if you're making that mistake year after year, year after year, then, you want to really dig deep to kind of reevaluate the path that you're going down. And there is another way, because there are plenty of success stories of people who have gone a different path, right?
Yeah, no question about it. And I love this conversation, by the way. So thank you for inserting it into the piece. I think that, when you can provide growth for people and you're empathetic to their life. I mean, I walk into this office, I don't have the same job role anymore. I don't have I don't carry the same weight, which is wonderful, by the way. But one of the things I think is very important for me when I walk into this space or I walk on a job site is I make sure I see every single person in this office when I walk in. How you doing? I don't accept fine. I want to dig in. I want to know what's going on. I can tell, you've been around people long enough. You've been around, but there's something going on if it's not going on. And so we really do put a lot of emphasis. By the way, we're a 50-year-old company that's not been perfect for 50 years. Yeah. This cultural thing has ridden a roller coaster. But I think where we've landed with the importance of this piece of serving each other. I mean, my brother used to have a sign on the front of our office that said, "One purpose, serve our clients." We ripped it down. I mean, it says we serve each other here. Yeah. In doing so, this group of people will take care of their clients. They will express the gratitude of having a job. And I think, right now where we're at, the rhythm that's in this company is as good as it's ever been in 50 years. I'm so excited to watch the youth do their thing, which is sometimes not the way I would do it, but that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Because to your point, the fail forward conversation, you don't want them to be big dollars. You don't want them to be big zeros. And, but 46 years, I made a bunch. Right?
Yeah. You didn't make any mistakes, did you?
I made a bunch of those. But we've enjoyed it. It has fun. And it really comes down to leadership here.
And you're echoing something I hear from a lot of great organizational leaders is they focus on their people first, and then their people serve their client in a phenomenal way, and they have thriving businesses, right? So I think this has been a phenomenal conversation. Jeff, thank you so much. What's the best way to get in touch with you? Who's kind of, I don't know, if somebody wants to come work for you, or, maybe somebody needs a condominium build. I don't know. Right.
Or they need some advice, which has become part of my thing here. Okay. So good. By the way, thank you for asking. So listen, I got one of the easiest email addresses in existence, and it's jeff@wpc.com.
All right.
And so that 3-letter URL that my brother captured in 1990 or 1991, right. We were the first general contractor in the United States to have a URL.
Wow.
When they first came out, there was one in Canada.
You're really forward thinking.
And so, so it's WPC.com, which back in the day stood for Winter Park Construction. We haven't been in the city of Winter Park, Florida since 1981. But Jeff@WPC.com, www.wpc.com is our URL, our website. You can go see who we are, and there's lots of things you can click on there to get to who we are. Yeah. We love the opportunity to meet new people and provide advice and share our fail forwards and lessons learned that you've talked about. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere, man. I got a lot of energy left.
So you're moving to the coaching business now, the mentorship business.
Yeah. So I actually have a business called the Contractor's Mentor. So totally. And so the idea of being able to share this thing has been fun, and I get to do it with my son and the other people around here. So
that's great. That's awesome. All right. Well, we'll make sure to include all that in the show notes. So everybody's going to email you. But
no problem, man. I love it.
All right, great. And we'll get this out on all the different channels here. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening to our People First Builders podcast. If you're a successful construction CEO and would like to tell your story on this program, please visit our podcast homepage, FletcherWimbush.com/peoplefirstbuilders, or check it out in the notes below. If you got something out of this interview and would like to share the episode on socials, we always appreciate that. Just take a quick screenshot with your phone, text it to a friend, or post it to the socials. If you know someone who might be a great guest, tag them on social and let them know. And don't forget, #PeopleFirstBuilders. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We're regularly putting out new content. To make sure that you don't miss out on any episodes, go ahead and hit subscribe on your favorite podcast channel. Your thumbs up and ratings and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, FletcherWimbush.com, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.